Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be talking about the Blue Scribes, the newest legendary hero to come out in Shadows of Change. Now as you can see, it's 2 blue horrors for the price of 1, and these might not sound like the most interesting characters. As we all are aware, the blue horrors are pretty low in Tzeentch's food chain. However, what you might not know is that the Blue Scribes are actually the most important demons that Tzeentch has available to him. That might sound surprising to newer lore fans, and in fact older lore fans will remember some retconned lore which mostly now only affects the 40k setting, but has since returned to Warhammer Fantasy thanks to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. You see, when you think of Tzeentch, you think of power, don't you? He is one of the big 4 of the Chaos Realms. But what if I told you that Tzeentch has not been at his strongest for a long time now, broken and shattered by his jealous brothers, Khorne, Nurgle and Slaanesh, who had united to make sure that Tzeentch could not win the Great Game, a battle of supremacy for the realms of chaos themselves, which would allow for one of the Chaos Gods to rule supreme over the others. Now you might be wondering, what do the Blue Scribes have to do with any of this? Well, simply enough, the Blue Scribes are the key to see Tzeentch reformed and possibly to once again show supremacy over the realms of chaos and potentially over every plane of existence. And for that we need to speak about the Shattering of Tzeentch. There was once a war between the ruinous powers, and Tzeentch was cast down from his perch on the endless mountains by the other gods. The great sorcerer was shattered into 10,000 pieces, with fragments scattering through time and space. These lodged into mortal minds to become all the spells and incantations, proliferating and changing into an eternal confusion of sorcerous lore. Tzeentch resolved to reclaim these fragments of his substance and created the Blue Scribes to enact his design. The 2 demons are charged with gathering every spell in existence, a task which requires more sentience than most lesser servants of the Changer command. Tzeentch is wary of demons exerting too much independence, so he granted Taryx the power to inscribe any spell but no ability to read. His companion Xerath can cast the spells but does not comprehend what is written. A monumental task, you might say, because there are many spells throughout the Warhammer Fantasy universe, but this is something which you might be surprised to hear, where you hear older fans of Warhammer Fantasy say that all magic is essentially chaos magic. For in fact, as far as we are all aware, all magic stems from the Great Deceiver himself, a piece of his shattered, broken body. This is why magisters, wizards, warlocks, anything that you can imagine, even if they're just following the basic color laws, such as the law of fire, the law of death, and even the law of light, why they are so susceptible to falling to chaos. And now let's speak about the great task itself. Impelled by the will of their master, the Blue Scribes travel between realms and throughout reality seeking new or altered spells. On the battlefield, where destructive spells fly freely between armies, the Blue Scribes manifest in the open, hurtling to and fro on a large, many-eyed disc of Tzeentch, surrounded by scrolls and tomes full of spells. As Taryx captures new spells on parchment, Xerath reads almost at random from the books, throwing out sorcery to confuse the enemy and protect the scribes in their labors. So it's something to note here that new spells are obviously being created as the winds themselves are getting stronger and as they divert. This is why we hear of new laws of magic, the law of yin, the law of yang. Those would still be attached to Tzeentch in one way, shape or form. There is further mention of different realities which we know for a fact is mentioning, for example, the Warhammer 40,000 universe, as chaos is the one constant throughout all of the settings. Tzeentch is still Tzeentch in Warhammer Fantasy, as he would be in all other settings. There are not multiple Tzeentches, there is only one and one alone. But let's continue. Away from battle, they are more subtle. Xerath and Taryx are gifted with limited foresight, which allows them to anticipate when a new enchantment will come into being. Before the new spell is cast, the spellcaster is plagued by barely discernible emanations from the ether, faint incandescence glimpsed in the corner of their study late at night. coruscating patterns on the walls, a swirling, multi-hued mist accompanied by whispered muttering from inhuman voices. As the manifestations grow in intensity, there is no escape. The Blue Scribes pursue their prey until the wizard utters the coveted spell or incantation, at which point they reveal themselves in the material world and snatch the words from the air. The victim feels the magical concept torn from their psyche, and only the strongest will can remain conscious under this ordeal. Naturally, unlike living creatures, demons don't rest, so the Blue Scribes are constantly moving. You can imagine that whilst they are pursuing one spellcaster, they've also got their attentions turned to perhaps 4, 5 or more different spellcasters. The Blue Scribes are extensions of Tzeentch and thus have no choice but to labour at the task he has given them. They must travel endlessly to recover and record every new spell throughout time. This includes ritual incantations, spells, and words of power spoken during the creation of magical items. The scribes are most likely to arise at the creation of a completely novel spell, but an existing spell performed by a new caster may also draw their attention. A slight difference in intonation makes minuscule new changes to how a spell functions. They have no interest in miracle workers. The ultimate aim of the Blue Scribes is to gather every spell and become part of Tzeentch once more. This is impossible, as there are an infinite number of expressions of magic, and seeing how magic itself can be expanded upon, a different spellcaster will perform a spell differently. Everything is part of that same shard of Tzeentch. Now, as we know, their task is pretty much impossible. It could be made easier, however, but that in itself would have its own risks. Again, we know that Tarex can inscribe every spell and not read them, and Zerat can cast the spells but can't comprehend what is written, and there is actually a valid reason for this. You see, Tzeentch does not want to risk even his own creations, extensions of him, becoming too powerful. If both of these Blue Scribes had the ability to inscribe but also comprehend these scrolls, they could grow in power, becoming more sentient as time progresses, and yes, potentially even trying to replace the Changer of Ways himself. This in itself is extremely rare, however we do know that it's happened at least once before. The Bloodthirster Skarbrand was offered too many privileges by his patron deity and sire, Khorne the Blood God. Skarbrand had grown too confident and too powerful and struck out at his own master. So if a demon of Khorne, a demon of honor and battle, as his patron deity is, was all too willing to strike out at his master, who's to say that a demon of Tzeentch, a demon of trickery and deceit, wouldn't do the same to his own sire? I did see a lot of people saying that they weren't too excited about the Blue Scribes arriving in Shadows of Change as a legendary hero. Honestly, I was quite excited because I'm a big fan of something that has a higher purpose, right? We know exactly what these demons are being sent out to do. Now, in all honesty, on the tabletop, they weren't really a great unit. Not many people would field them, but it's always nice to have some named characters that were introduced and still getting new lore in their setting. And since we know that there's going to be levels of randomness attached to them in Total War Warhammer, seeing as they will have completely random spells, and as they cast, they will get even more random spells, it might be fun, especially for those who are big fans of Tzeentch. But let me know what you guys think about these characters in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion, and before I leave you, I'll give you another excerpt of lore which will show you how wizards react regarding the arrival of the Blue Scribes. When the patriarchs of the colleges of magic convene, they prefer to discuss one matter in hushed tones. There is a mysterious psychic malady that afflicts selected magisters of all colleges, specifically those who strive to create new spells. It always takes the same form. In the days before their collapse, the wizard complains of faint blue luminescence at the edge of their vision and a sound like a scratching quill. Their fall comes swiftly. After a catastrophic sorceress misfire, they undergo total mental collapse and a period of delirium, where they rave about the blue one stealing away their mind. Many victims never fully recover, as if some irreparable damage was done to their essence. These unfortunate magisters have been visited by the Blue Scribes of Tzeentch, servants of the Great Architect, doomed to cross reality seeking fragments of their master's shattered mind. So you see here that even within the colleges of magic, some place that you'd imagine to be quite safe, although we all know well enough it is perhaps one of the unsafest places to be, but there even in the heart of the Empire, in one of the most protected cities. If you have any magical potential whatsoever, you will still be under the eyes of the Blue Scribes. But with all that being said, my friends, have a good day, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.